Hey, everybody. Welcome to the ShopNotes Podcast. I'm Phil, along with John and Logan for 2024, kicking things off with a lot of fun stuff in store this year and some great conversations to be had. Thanks for listening, and let's get started.
Man, calling your shot right out of the gate that this is going to be a great podcast.
It's like he's never went back and watched any of our podcasts.
Yeah. Pressure is on. This has to be a great podcast, guys. We can't sleepwalk through it like normal. 2024 is going to be different.
This is the year we get caught up on stuff.
Or after this year, it gets better. Right.
Can't get any worse. Let's just put it that way.
The dead cat bounce. Okay.
So did you guys get any woodworking gifts?
I got a Woodsmith branded hooded sweatshirt for Christmas.
Nice.
From my parents. But my wife's kind of taking it over, though. She likes it.
All right.
So, getting the brand out there.
She probably is a fan of the podcast, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Right.
She's gonna catch up in 2024. 180 podcasts straight.
I think we said somewhere in the 50s, this podcast is not meant for overconsumption that.
Right.
No.
You will hate us if you do
It'll
that.
drive you mad. One podcast is too much. Yeah. But here we are.
Yeah. Phil, I know you got a woodworking tool.
I did. For those who have listened to way too many of these podcasts, you know my kind of Captain Ahab-like search for the perfect mortising tool and my different experiments with things, and was chatting about it with my dad, who's also a woodworker, and we stumbled across the Jessam Pocket Mill Pro, I think is what it's called. It uses a drill and a special bit to create loose tenon mortises in pieces, and they also sell a workstation that goes with this jig. Well, I actually have it here in the shop. I'll put a photo of it on the show notes page and a link to the Jessam site. It's kind of cool. I like the idea of it being powered by just a regular drill. Like I was using just one of our cordless 18-volt drills, and it worked like a champ. Makes really smooth mortises. The bit is basically a spiral upcut router bit, solid carbide, that's installed in a longer bit extension that goes in the drill.
It looks like a Craig pocket hole bit if the fat part was a solid piece of bar.
Right.
Doesn't it? It steps down really far. It's weird.
It steps down in there. The jig comes with a 6mm bit, which their Jessam is out of Canada. So in Canadian, that 6mm translates to just under 1/4 of an inch, I think. So
well, in Canada, it's still 6mm.
It is still 6mm, but here it's like 1.5 pounds or something.
In America,
I don't remember. Yeah. So it's for those who speak American, it's about a little less than 1/4 of an inch. And I was surprised. I tried it out the first time on some ash scraps that I had at home. I was going to use some white pine, but I feel like
that's not fair.
Yeah, that's not fair to anybody.
Never stood a chance.
Yeah.
Nope.
So I tried it on ash, did end grain, if you were doing a loose tenon joint where it would be an end grain mortise and a face grain, and it worked really great. Did some, I think the pieces that I had here were mahogany that I was showing you guys yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And again, worked really smoothly. So
yeah, nice.
I'm excited about it. Is it the ideal solution? No, but I think there's a case to be made that you can chase ideal until you're dead.
Yep.
So I'm excited to put it to work on some projects that I have boiling around in my head. It'll be interesting to see how it works. It's this mortise sizes that they work with for the most part The jig is not obviously competitive, but it creates mortises the same size as some of the Festool dominoes.
Yeah.
In terms of both the width of the mortise, the length, and the depth.
Well, no, I was say it's one of those things that almost looks like, or the bigger difference, in my opinion, between that and the Festool, since you brought that up, is like the Festool, you bring the tool to the workpiece, and this is workpiece. You bring the workpiece of the tool.
Yeah, yeah.
So
it has a very similar vibe to kind of your shop-made router mortising jigs. You know, some of the ones that we've shown where it's, you know, a face plate that you clamp your piece to, and then the mortar, whatever is powering the bit, is above that. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Ended up ordering they have a 10 millimeter bit, I think is the largest that they go to. Mm-hmm. So just to have two different sizes to work with, I think will be
nice.
They sell I think 6 different size bits or something like that altogether, and I don't think you need a full set. It's kind of like mortising chisels. Do you need a full set of mortising chisels? Probably not.
You
probably
like 3
need
sizes.
2 or 3, where it's like normal work, big stuff, entry doors.
Yep, small stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. But I got a set of nice Brad Point bits, which is cool.
Okay.
Because I think we were looking for a standard twist bit when you were here, when we were making your nut for your drill press. But like the ones that I had, I think they must have been like a Harbor Freight set or something, or maybe it was like a Menards free after rebate. The bits themselves had a ton of run out on them.
Oh.
So like you'd throw a bit, especially in a drill, and you're like, that's wobbly. It's wobbly as crap. It's not making a 1/4 inch hole. It's making a 3/8 inch hole because of the oscillation on it. So I got a nice set of Forstner bits. But the bigger thing, I think, is we all got a Christmas gift, right? That got delivered yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So Phil,
the unwrapping is going to be the hardest part.
Right. Yeah, we're in the middle of, even though a lot of people are probably seeing season 17 of the Woodsmith Shop TV show airing on either its first run or second run, we're already starting on season 18. And we've picked up a new underwriter sponsor for the show. Grizzly Tools agreed to be an underwriter. So they've been an advertiser in Popular Woodworking for quite a long time.
Yep.
Since issue 1. So they joined us, and then Logan made a run down to Springfield, Missouri, and picked up some new tools for our set, because that's one of the perks of being a sponsor, is being able to have their tools on the set. So we have a trailer load of new tools that came. We got a bandsaw and a drill press and a table saw, joiner planer, a lathe,
oscillating edge sander and spindle sander.
Right, for the main production shop. So if you pay attention on YouTube or on our Facebook page, we do shop updates every Thursday. You'll be able to see some of those make appearances there. So
got a little mini vertical mill, which is awesome.
Yes. Our resident Wile E. Coyote, Chris Fitch, has been eyeing a metalworking milling machine for a while now, and we're able to scratch that itch there. So
so it was kind of like a community Christmas. Everybody had to help unload it off the trailer, which kind of sucked. But it was like a community Christmas gift, where it's like, hey, look at all these new tools that, I mean, we get to play with them, but we don't have to find room for them in our own shops, which is really awesome.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So it'd be cool. I always like the unboxing, the setting up of new tools. That's always fun.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of Tetris in terms of we have these, big crate cage looking things that we have to set somewhere. And then the old tools are still around. So now we got to figure out where and how they're going to move and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Fun problems.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's pretty awesome because it's like, we've had several power tool underwriters for, the last 18 seasons. This one's a little different because they have everything. Like everything. Yeah. Like, hey, you want a, gunsmithing lathe that you can cut rifling into a gun barrel? They got it. I mean, it helps that Shiraz, we talked about it on the podcast. He's big into firearms, but they have everything. It was pretty cool. I wish I would have had more time to walk around their showroom yesterday when I was down there, because it was like I walked in the front door, walked immediately to the back counter, said who I was there for, did a quick tour, and I was back on the road within an hour. It was, I could have wandered around there for a long time. And we had the Woodsmith store here in town when it was, in its original location, and it dwarfs that. Absolutely dwarfs it. I mean, it's like walking
so it's
into
like
Walmart.
It's like a Cabela's or something of.
100%, 100%.
That it's an event space, kind of like it's an experience.
So is that a retail site as well?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like walking into a Cabela's, so much so that they have a fish pond in the center with mounted grizzlies around it, like legitimately. Wow. So it's pretty cool. So I just wish I would have had more time. I mean, because Grizzly not only sells their own stuff, they have a bunch of other stuff as well. So they have a full 2 rows of like Milwaukee stuff. They have full 2 rows of DeWalt stuff. They have a full row of, Nerix branded hand tools. They have a lot of stuff in there. So pretty cool.
Nice.
So yeah. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be cool to. There's always a little bit of a learning curve. Like, I mean, a table saw is a table saw, but
there's nuances,
the operation, and it's like cars.
Yeah, well, it's like one thing that we noticed yesterday when we were moving that table saw, and the dust port's on a different side than our other table saw. So it's like, so the dust port being on the back, facing what would be the camera, it's facing off the left hand side if you're the operator. So there's just those little nuances between manufacturers that you kind of got to learn.
Yep. So other Christmas news, you are semi-blocking your completed sawtill.
Yep.
There it is.
Back there. Yep. So got that bad boy finished up. I'm super happy with the curly maple for everything. Like, did the curly maple back, which is covered in saws now, and curly maple drawers. I dorked up those drawers pretty bad, though. Like, not gonna lie. I had.
I mean, they only have to look pretty from the front, right?
Well, okay, so that's what I dorked up. I had one board. I'm like, continuous grain all the way across. Cut my left drawer, my middle drawer, and then I go to cut my right drawer. I cut it an inch short. So that drawer on the far side over there is a different piece of wood. Is anybody going to notice it? No. But
for a little while, it will bother you.
It doesn't bother me that much. I'm pretty realistic with stuff. It's like, it is what it is. I did have like big plans. I got discouraged after I did that. I had plans of like doing locking rabbits on those drawers. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to dowel these SOBs together. So those drawers are complete dowel construction, which is awesome.
There you go.
Yeah. So, yep, she's done. Turned 3 pegs for the bottom. You can kind of see a couple of saws hanging off of my apron.
Okay.
So little shaker pegs. And I didn't shoot any of that stuff because it's like, I figure if somebody wants shaker pegs and they want to turn them, they probably know how to turn shaker pegs. And if somebody else wants to put pegs on there, they don't know how to turn, they're going to order them. So,
right. And you can get shaker pegs at Menards. You can get shaker pegs online.
Yeah. And I actually had bought a couple of boxes of shaker pegs because initially I wasn't going to turn them. Initially I was just going to, use the poplar ones. But I'm like, poplar is going to look goofy. So I happened to have a drawer front that was too small that I could cut up into into shaker pegs. So that's what I did. But then, I'm not a very smart person, but I had a genius idea. I'm in Menards looking for poles for this thing, and the consensus with my Pop Wood staff was gold or brass. Poles are going to be the best thing, because painted would be fine. You don't necessarily want to throw another wood color in there.
Right.
So we're like, all right, brass will play off of those sawbacks really nicely.
Yeah. Plus our like Green Bay Packer colors.
Yeah, there's that too. All the knobs at Menards are just way too big. So I'm trying to figure out like what to do for a smaller knob. I was wandering around in the like lighting aisle because they have the threaded balls that you would use for like tops of lamps and stuff.
Oh, sure.
And I'm like, maybe I make one of those work. Those are just a little too small. Nothing was Goldilocks right. It was all too big, too small. Nothing was just right. So then I'm wandering around Menards and I'm like, I bought some brass stock. I'm like, maybe I'll just like, make some poles. I have a couple of big pieces of brass here. And I'm like, hey, I could make those look like saw nuts. Like by using the bigger stock and just kind of hollowing out the center, make it look like a saw nut. I'm like, hey, dumbass, you got a box full of extra saw nuts at home. So I used a couple of medallions for the drawer pulls, which I think looks really, really cool. So
yeah, and I think it's a great touch on there because they are, like you said, they're the perfect size.
Yep.
And
ties in.
Yeah.
And yeah. I had an Atkins one, I had a Diston one, and I had a warranted Superior one. So,
Okay.
So kind of cool. It's just kind of fun.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, for the most part, you can find some decent looking medallions.
Yeah.
And some pretty ratty saws.
Well, and that's exactly it. And actually, I got an email from a gentleman, and I need to reply back to him. He was asking me about saw nuts and where to find them. His name was Steve, and his father made a cane for him several years ago that looks like a saw handle. So the cane handle is a saw handle shape. Going down into the cane part. He's like, hey, I think it'd be really cool to put some saw nuts on here. And he was asking me where to find them, and I need to reply back to him. But yeah, I mean, you could buy boxes of saw nuts off of eBay because a lot of times the handles are roached or the plates are all bent up. The hardware's still good. So
yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking how many times I've been at a thrift store garage sale or something like that. And like you said, the blades have been sitting in a garage for how many years, and they're just rusted way beyond anything that's usable anymore. Or like you said, the handles are cracked or they were terrible handles to begin with, but they still used decent looking medallions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you get some of those, like the later Atkins and stuff used like the laminated plywood type handles and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. So she's done. My next project, I think, is going to be for in the shop. I'm going to do like a little 3-part series on. It's not a series. It'll be a 3 quick and easy shop storage solutions. So doing a simple clamp rack, doing a push pad holder for the jointer, like a magnetic one. So little stuff like that. So just kind of shop quality of life projects. So that'll be a nice little fun, fast project.
Yeah, I do think January, February timeframe is nice for shop projects.
Yeah.
Because you have, let's face it, in the Midwest, the midwinter can be challenging.
Yeah, it's the highest months for. I remember this from my pre-med time in college. It is the highest months for diagnosed depression.
Okay, there you go.
Can't wait.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, like, I don't know. Did we talk about this linseed paint that we've messed around with? I don't think we have.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
So like I painted this thing. So there was a Chris Shore's blog a couple of months ago talking about linseed paint, right? And like I've heard of linseed paint. It's an oil-based paint. You know, it's really big in like Scandinavia, like for like outdoor paints, like painting doors. Like you see those beautiful pictures of the fjords with, you know, all these houses that are really bright and stuff. It's all linseed paint generally.
Right.
It's kind of a traditional paint.
So how would, just to step back real quick.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between linseed paint and kind of the old school oil paint that John and I remember from our childhood and hating having to clean up?
Because that paint is a petrol based paint, so it is a petrol oil based product,
Okay.
I believe. The linseed paint, the actual carrier of the pigment is linseed oil. So you have all the benefits of the linseed oil,
Right.
with the ability or the situation of it carrying a pigment. Okay. So
Right.
what I reached out to a company and I was like, oh, I kind of want to mess with this stuff and want to do, you know, an article on it because I mean, yeah, like milk paint's cool and all, but it's milk paint. You know, I feel very Chip and Joanna Gaines when I use it and I don't like that feeling about myself. So like I try to avoid it. Not there's anything wrong with Chip and Joanna, but like, so I got a company up in Canada, Sage Restorations, sent us maybe 5 or 6 colors of a brand called Allbach, Allback, Allbach paint, and they're small. They're probably 250 milliliters. Like they're pretty small jars, but we got a couple different colors. And I first painted one of the stools that we did on the TV show. I painted the base on it using the same green. And I'm like, hey, that color was really cool. So I'm going to use it on this. So I used it on this. Now, the difference in application on this linseed paint is crazy. It brushes so nice. And I think I told Phil this as I was painting. Like, it's changed my idea about brushing paint on because it flows so nice off the brush. And I'm just using, like, cheap Chinese chip brushes. Like I actually bought a nice oil brush for this, but I haven't used it yet. But it flows really nicely. It drags forever. Like when I painted the stool, it was 4 legs and a couple stretchers, so not a ton of coverage. But I shook the paint up, and then I just used the paint that was on the lid from opening the jar, and I was able to paint the entire stool. It paints. It drags. It has an immense amount of coverage. They say that it covers twice as much as like an acrylic paint.
Okay.
And what I also found, and I don't know if this is a function of the oil carrier or the pigment size, but it seems to be a much, much finer paint than like an oil or a latex or, you know, anything like that, because like it was to the point where as I'm dragging the paint with the brush, so dragging the paint being, you know, load up the paint with brush, you start painting, but then you go to those areas where you first touch the brush to, there's more paint there than the rest of the area. So you can kind of drag it out and spread it more or less. As I'm doing that, the pigment is picking up and like, you know, when I was painting, you know, my little figures and stuff for my tabletop games, you call it dry brushing. So you're using a brush that has most of the paint taken off, and it applies that pigment that's on the brush to the highlights, the highest points on the surface. As you're dragging this paint, it's actually picking up and highlighting the like 180 grit sand marks on the surface. Like it's very interesting. So it's a very, very fine pigment, I think. I'm in love with this paint. It's expensive though. That's the bigger issue with using it all the time, and I don't think it's like an everyday every project paint, but man, I really like it. It does take forever to dry. That's where I was going with this whole thing. I painted this, Phil, like that last day we were in the office before break, right?
Yeah.
I picked this up like Saturday or Sunday, like 8 days later I picked this thing up and I was still getting green paint all over everything. Like it just takes forever to dry. It's one of those things that you paint it and you don't touch it for 2 weeks. You know, as I was fitting drawers and stuff, I had green paint all over the drawers. Yeah, it's just, but the paint is awesome. It seems to be, I don't know if this is this will make any sense. It's a much cleaner paint, I guess. So like, what I mean by that is, I'm sure you guys have painted something and then brushed it up against like a dusty surface,
Mhm.
and the paint kind of picks up the dust, and then you can never really get it back to like the clean paint color. It's like it doesn't seal the wood or something,
Sure.
but this stuff does. Like, I laid this on my workbench, picked it up, the side was all dusty, and literally just brushing it off with my hand, all the dust came right off, which was interesting, because I was afraid that it's like, oh god, now that side's always going to be a shade different than the rest of it because there's a layer of fine dust on it. But no, it's pretty cool. I like it.
I think it's interesting also that paint was being linseed paint, because I think the old oil paint had a lot of thinner in it. You know, mineral spirits or something like that. So it had that mineral spirit whatever, and then you'd have to use like 3 gallons of mineral spirits to clean brushes or whatever. But this stuff, the cleaner isn't mineral spirits, it's a linseed soap.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure what that is.
Right.
So, because if I'm cleaning linseed oil off of a brush or something, I'm usually using mineral spirits.
Right. Well, maybe now you can use linseed soap.
Yeah. And
is it the same as Murphy's oil soap? I don't know.
I think it is, because that's what comes up when I Google it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just says it's a traditional product made from cold-pressed, raw, purified linseed oil. The soap contains no additives and is excellent for cleaning brushes after applying Albach seed oil paint. Wood also works well for cleaning woodenware and flooring. It's solvent-free, safe, and easy to use, and has a low environmental impact. A 34-ounce, 1-liter container is $21 of it. So it is pretty much the same price as like a gallon of, well, no, it would be more than a gallon of mineral spirits, but
yeah,
I would guess you would use a little bit less.
Right.
So the Albach, I think the Albach paint is available from Lee Valley, I believe. It is available from Lee Valley. So the 200 milliliter, which is what we have, which is like it's about the size of like a small jar of jelly or jam, is $23. So she's pretty pricey, but it goes a lot further than a standard paint. So, and the tones that it comes in are very nice. They're very earthy. They're very natural colors. So
very Scandi.
Very Scandi. Yeah.
John, what do you got going on?
What do I got going on? Well, today it looks like I'm going to be uncrating and putting together a bunch of tools. So that's fun. I did get the bandsaw crate off, and that'll take into the dumpster. So that's a good start. But trying to finish up a upcoming ShopNotes project, which is a bench top organizer, which has been kind of tough because it's very vague on what it is.
Right.
And it's like... We've done like Lazy Susan type things where it sits on your bench and you can keep stuff in. But I think my direction is more of like a tote type thing, because I would want to take it off the bench and put it away. I just don't want it to sit there all the time. So kind of been bouncing back and forth with ideas there, but need to finish that up. So, but
in design, is there ever a wrong thing?
No,
like,
that's the thing.
I mean,
but there's never
like,
ever
it can be whatever you want.
Either. There's never a right answer.
Yeah.
So that's
it's never yet,
part.
John. You hit that one out of the park.
Yeah.
It's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what's hard for me, is coming up with the right answer, even though there's not ever a right answer. So it's very, abstract. So, but I got to finish that up and get it down the road. So that's usually what gets you to the answer, is the deadline. So That's what I got going on. So I think I got to have
That's
that
what
out the
makes
door
the answer,
by Monday. So, but yeah, it's always easy when there's something else to do, like mess around with new tools and stuff. It's like, oh, I'll just put this to the side and go play in the shop. So, but
not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that either. So
yeah,
lovely. All right, cool. Well, I think we're going to wrap that up here with today's episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or smart remarks, I want to hear about them. You can send them to woodsmith@woodsmith.com. You can also put them in the comments section on our YouTube channel, where you'll find all kinds of other woodworking videos and information and project ideas and build-alongs and all that kind of stuff. We're putting up new stuff all the time there. And Logan even has a disc sander project coming up that we'll be featuring. He's working on that. So, like I said, we've got a lot going on with Woodsmith and ShopNotes and Popular Woodworking this year, as well as our new, I don't know, is it a long-term relationship now with Fine Woodworking? Figuring out how those guys fit into our weird family reunions and and even probably a live event or two coming up this year. So we're going to stay tuned for that as well. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next week on the ShopNotes Podcast. Bye.